And she knows. I mean, Sai Pallavi is so good in that. Sorry.
Oh my
It's
god,
okay.
I was
She
like,
is excellent.
It's Mahanati. It's not even Savitri. It's like Mahanati. It's
yeah.
when it's Mahanati, and like another.
Yeah. Actually, we wanted to show you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode on Westside Talkies podcast series. And we have a very special guest with us today. We have Dani, and like every Telugu cine fan would know who is the one of our greatest movies ever made. He's the cinematographer of Mahanati. He has like so many other movies in his portfolio, and you always know in so many podcasts we already mentioned how much of a big fan we both are for Mahanati, and
Mahanati.
yes, and we always wanted to talk to Dani the work in Mahanati and also the other movies he did, and like it's really exciting to have you here. And Dani is also best friends with Prarthana Mohan. We spoke with her recently. That's how we got him.
Yes, she's
And
great. She's a very good friend.
yes,
VFX.
yeah, you want to talk about his work, about his childhood, like how he got into movies, all the amazing work he did, and one more exciting thing about him is he's like pan world. He's moving between Spain, LA, and India.
Yeah, Punk World. That's a good. I like it.
So
I'm
yeah,
gonna use that.
we hardly make time to go to the next city, but he's like moving between
Exactly.
countries to make these shoots.
Exactly.
Yeah, first, this is again for our audience and for so many folks who want to know your story. I think they already know your amazing work and they know many things about that work. Let's talk about your how you were as a kid, how your journey into this film world happened.
Well, I mean, first of all, thank you so much for your kind words. Like, I know I'm always like a little bit like baffled when I hear all this because I'm like my origins are very humble. Like both my parents are teachers. I come from a low class family in Spain, and my access to movies was because I was a fan because I love watching movies. So when I was a kid, like instead of go and play in the park, I would stay and like watch movies. My grandma, my uncle, who was living at that time in my grandma's place, like had recorded all these VHSs and Betacams,
Okay.
of TV because at that time, like it was very difficult to find good movies. So I would stay at their place and they'll be like, okay, like let's see which movie is this. Oh, it's a movie about an orange. Okay. So I would watch it, and then I was like, Grandma, like there was no orange in this movie, and it was the Clockwork Orange, right? And I think I watched all of Kubrick before I turned 9. So I guess like we don't have like that system of banning movies for children. But yeah, like he and my aunt and my uncle, they were big fans of classical movies. So I watched all of Chaplin, all of Buster Keaton, and those movies really impregnated my childhood. As much as whatever blockbuster was happening on the screens. Right, we had 3 cinemas only at that time and one screen. So the movie that premiered on one of them like passed through the weeks. So you will watch a movie maybe twice or thrice, right? In
Okay.
the span that it was leaving the theaters. And
Yeah.
then it took a long time until you could watch it again. So I remember like as a fanboy, like looking for the movies everywhere and finding them. So that was kind of my access to movies. And I really wanted to shoot. I mean, I really wanted to shoot movies since I remember. But it's very hard. Like if you don't have like a family connection, or if you live like me, like south of Spain, which is disconnected from Madrid, which is the center of the epicenter of shooting. So, I mean, I turned to studies, and I was very good academically. Coming from two minds that are teachers. I was good academically, so I could access more like further studies with scholarships, and I studied in New York. I studied in England, and I studied also in LA, where I finished my MFA at Chapman University, which is, as you know, one of the top 10 universities for film. And that's where I met Pratna Mohan, actually.
Okay.
I met her there, and
Okay.
her first project, which is called Whore, and it's a high school comedy. Glad
Okay.
like, I mean, it was my first DOP project, and we did it together, and from since then we've been like best friends. So yeah.
Cool. Cool. Cool.
Very nice. So again,
Very nice.
being like a normal kid from Spain and then uh, like going to a film school to study in the US, as you kind of say, I kind of feel like it was not easy for you to convince your parents to explore this career, right? At least for us folks
Yeah.
coming from India,
Sure. I
I
mean,
don't think
like,
it's that easy to convince our parents to get into creative world.
I don't know.
Was it
I
same
think
for you?
no, like my parents, they come from like I said, like low income families, and like they understood that whatever. I mean, I was very good at numbers,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
they always tried. In fact, like like when I did my SATs, I got a really high score, but my second choice was mathematics. My first choice was audiovisual communication because there's no film in the university in Spain. So I almost ended up a mathematician. It would have been like a very different life. But I mean, but I still love it. I still love solving problems, which is what filmmaking is about, really. So, and cinema language in a way, it's like a weird combination of trigonometrics or whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, and there's a lot of geometry in it. But yeah,
Exactly. The work that you do actually has a lot of geometry in it.
oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Right. Like the symmetry, the angles. I mean, that's what you check for doing it, right? So
Yeah, I mean, I guess it comes naturally because I don't. I mean, I just know that it's right. I mean, I obviously, like, the rule of 180 and whatever. That's
yeah.
basic, right. And then you kind of balance shots. But as you grow as a DOP, you realize that not matching reverse shots are actually more interesting than matching. I mean, matching is great when it's a fluid conversation, and that they're gonna cut really fast. I mean,
Mm.
because I was an editor before I became a cinematographer.
Oh,
That
cool.
kind of comes not like it like when I'm thinking about a sequence, when I read it, I can see the edit, and I can see that if there's like comedy lines back and forth, and you can see the reactions. Like, I know that they're gonna need cuts, and this is gonna be like a cutty scene. So for that, maybe I will resort to like more matching reverse angles. But sometimes when that conversation, there's one person that's hiding something, or one person that's cajoling them, right? Like, I would use framing and lighting to actually narrate what's happening in the underlines, of whatever's really on the surface of the movie.
Okay. Cool.
But
Cool.
I forgot the
Yes.
question.
No, no,
my
no,
No, it
parents, my
was
no.
like
parents, my parents were like
Uh,
super supportive. Like, I'm their only child, so I mean, you cannot imagine like I mean, how nostalgic they must have felt in my time in the U.S. or in India. But they were always supportive. They knew that if I wanted to do film, I had to fly, and they were the first ones that So with with the US, it was simpler because obviously I got a scholarship, and they're like, okay, he has to study there. But with India, it was a bit different because I got my first job in India from the US. Actually, nothing related to the fact that some of my best friends were Indian and Pakistani, like obviously Pratna, but also Mia Adnan Ahmed, who's a filmmaker from Pakistan. So there were some of my best friends and collaborators there. But unrelated to it, it was a time of the crisis, like Virgin crushed. But productions were slow. They had a writer strike in Los Angeles, and the only work came from, really shitty web series on 5D that
Okay.
were, meant to be consumed like peanuts, like. So it was I mean, it's the worst time to be a cinematographer because they just want content, so it was mostly, I mean, I was working with really interesting comedians, stand-up comedians that were really funny, but in terms of cinematography, I always tried to include something, and the directors that I worked with like were against it. They were like, no, let's just keep it simple, it's just like about the funny lines or whatever. So it was a tough time. I was applying to many jobs, and one of them just randomly came from India. This producer loved my reel, which included some of the work that I did with Pradna and Adnan. They have won many awards for their short films, and also the cinematography in them. So he was impressed by it, and I think uh he sort of like he sort of wanted to like promote the film, like, oh, like this guy from Hollywood is coming. I mean, I was just like out of school basically. I'd done like a couple of features and whatever, but like nothing major. And then he brought me to Bombay, and funny coincidence. Like I told him like, hey, so yeah, like that's amazing. You know what? Like the first week of prep, like my friend's getting married, and it's like, oh yeah, where in Spain? It's like, no, no, in Chennai. They're like, what? Who's your friend? It's like, oh, Pratna Mohan. It's like, who's that? Well, you may know like her grandfather, MSV, and then you have to go to that wedding. And I like, what do you mean? It's like, we can push the movie. And like, what? So they actually pushed the movie and they flew me there. And I was like, really? Okay. Like, I guess India is really into weddings, which it is, it is. But like, obviously, I wasn't aware of, like how big, MSV was. And I got to meet him, he was, it was a presence, in that wedding. Everyone was praising him. We listened to some of his songs. It was an amazing wedding. And then I joined, the movie, and that was 2011. My first experience to India when I landed was Chennai in a wedding. That was not terribly bad, not terribly bad for a first impression, right?
but,
I know that.
but very interesting. I always thought you, I guess that was but the next topic I wanted to discuss, like how exactly you were venturing into, like why uh, Indian movies, like what was your trigger or how you happened to be here. But I always thought you and Nag Ashwin were friends somewhere from some college or somewhere. I didn't know that it was
Because
like
Nag
from
Ashwin
via
usually do
production.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
I thought it
Nag
was
Ashwin
like
usually do that.
we didn't know that
I'm
it was
now
via
very good
production.
friends. Yeah, I'm now very good friends with Nagi, but I didn't know him at all.
Oh, we
Yeah,
thought you
so
were onboarded because you guys were friends and he wanted to do this with you.
no, I mean, like I did a few features in Bombay, and at some point there was a point in which I could have chosen to live in Bombay, but at the same time, I had these good friends in LA, and I spent most of my year in Bombay. And at some point, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna go back to LA. I'm gonna go back, and that's where the Misekeshi of Bindu seed started. When we started working on it, and and I was there when suddenly I received an email from this director that I didn't know, and the script for Mahanati was attached,
Oh,
and
nice.
and I read it and I fell in love with it. I'm like, what
Oh.
is this? Like, what an opportunity. And like my friends were like, but you left India. Like, why are you going back? And I'm like, well, it's a bit, I mean, this movie's gonna be good, guys. And they're like, yeah, yeah, but like, why India again? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, you don't understand. This movie is like awesome. Like it's candy, I mean, I love classical movies. Like I didn't know anything about classical. I mean, obviously the Pata Panchali, like trilogy. Like I had watched it. Is he that? I mean, it's a Kurosawa of India, no? But like
Mm.
and when I moved to Bombay, like I learned a lot more about Indian cinema. But obviously, like is very regionalized. It's like in Europe, where Spanish cinema collaborated sometimes with the neorealist of Italy, or during Nouvelle Vague, some people work together. Like Nestor Almendros, the DOP, he's from Spain and he worked a lot with Truffaut. He also did some work in the US, like Days of Heaven, with Malik. But it's not normal. Like when you talk about Spanish cinema, it's Spanish cinema. When you talk about German films, so yeah, when I got to Bombay, like I didn't know much about Tollywood, Collywood, like Malayalam film, and I got that's Malayalam. Actually, I watched a couple of them because they were singular, right? Like they
Yeah.
always like keep through your list, and suddenly like they're in. I mean, you're watching it, but in terms of classical Tollywood and Collywood, like from Chennai or Hyderabad, like nothing. So this was a chance for me to actually watch them, and it's a pity that Mahanati didn't come later, because now they're all with subtitles on Prime. But at that time, it was like random DVDs, that people like had kept, or suddenly YouTube links, and Nag had to be like explaining what was happening. So yeah, he's oh, Dani, she's the wife, and now that's the daughter-in-law, and like, oh, this is happening. Oh yeah, it seems good. Watch it, watch it, watch it. So yeah, we
I
watched a
can
lot of it,
imagine that.
and a lot of references for it. uh, but yeah, like I mean, it was a not only like I mean, it's not only a good film, but also like it was a great experience because I got to know like hidden gems, that were I mean that I would have no access to otherwise.
Excellent. Just a
Exactly.
funny question. How many Telugu movies did Nagi make you watch? Do you remember any names?
Yeah, I mean, like it was Telugu, but also like Savitri Garu like also worked in Chennai a lot. So a
Yeah.
lot was
Yeah.
Tamil cinema and Telugu cinema. I mean, countless. Like I don't know. Like when I started, I continued. I was like, okay, this is good. Let's continue with this. And obviously, like I would be like, oh, let's watch this MSB movie. Like now, and I would share it with Pranda, and Pranda was like, why are you watching that? And their family was like so happy. It's like, oh, you're doing like that Sabriti movie. That's amazing. Blah, blah, blah. And I would be like, okay, like fine.
Very
That's
nice.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
When,
when you got the script, it was Mahanati. I mean, the title was Mahanati.
It was Mahanati. Yeah. It was
Okay,
a,
so he already fixed the title like
yeah.
before getting it to stage.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
nice.
that was a like stage name, right? Like there's no other word which can describe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was
Yep.
it
We can
was a
act.
very long script. And and a lot of it changed during the shoot, like
Okay.
yeah, I think that's one of the qualities of I mean, most of the movies that I've shot in Hyderabad or in Telugu have that kind of tendency, because
Okay.
actors, I mean, these big actors, they all have dates, like
Mm.
they have to go. So in a way, the director, I mean, it's it's um it's a little bit difficult, but at the same time, it's an opportunity. Like I say difficult because obviously, like catching up speed when you come back for a couple of days of shoot it's a little difficult. Like the whole team disassembles and suddenly like bring them back. It's very difficult, but at the same time you have time to reflect on what you've shot and how to go forward. With Mahanati, like I mean, I met Nag Ashwin, like we had soup one night of the end of monsoon, at the beginning of monsoon in Hyderabad, and 2 days later we were shooting. So yeah, so I was
Ah.
scared. I was like very complex. Like, how are we gonna do it? It's like, no, we'll take it, we'll take it. And the first day was very beautiful because there were scenes from the Mahanati from some Savarthi Garu's movies. We shot three of them. Uh, they were tricky, the Dutch sisters, I have to say. without my knowledge, they put three stages within one stage, right? So I
Okay.
didn't allow them after that. I was like, guys, like this is tricky. Don't do this again. So they had like three different stages, and it was a test shoot in a way, right? Because we had a 16 camera, we had the Alexa, we had a few things, but we actually did our camera tests with everything, with Kirti Suresh, getting into the Mahanati skin and shooting those scenes. And because I'd watched those movies and I watched those moments, um, I talked to Nag. It's like, well, do we wanna replicate it completely? And he was
Mm-hmm.
like, well, kind of. And I was like, well, but you're using a different aspect ratio.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we're modernizing it to like current India, maybe we also should like also think about how lighting has progressed, within these years. Like obviously, like the lights of that time were heavy and huge because the sensibility of film was nowhere close to like how sensitive our
Digital.
ours is right now. Vision 3 from Kodak, or the Alexa, or now it's crazy, like the Sony Venice can go to 32 ISO, so 3200. So yeah, so I mean I was like, let's try it. So we use less light. We adapted that, like we adapted to like contemporary lighting, and that's how we shot those three scenes. And the moment we did, like everyone knew this movie was gonna work, because Kirti
Oh.
Suresh was Savitri, she just
Mm.
was, and costume was great, art was awesome, and we decided, how we were gonna shoot it back there, like there and then.
Very
So,
nice.
quick question, just an add-on, because you were actually saying about this. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Actually,
Sorry,
sorry. I
yeah.
just break people, so sorry. Okay, so you were saying that the first thing you guys shot was the scenes that you have to replicate of Savitri Garu.
Yeah.
So, did you guys shoot that in real by any chance? Because like, or you shot it digitally and just used the black and white filter and I mean reduce the
So
saturation and all.
yeah, that's a good question. And we were doubting as well
Mm-hmm.
because because film had gone. Film is dead now. Like I
Yeah.
just shot a short film on 16 millimeter here in Spain last week, and it was so difficult because there's no labs anymore. Like we don't have any lab in Spain.
Mm.
The lab that people were accessing was in the UK, but now with Brexit, like it's gone. So I mean, there's one small lab in Malaga in the south of Spain, but that's artisanal, and that's more for like I've used it for experimental projects. But I mean, this is a commercial short film. So we contacted the Cine Lab in Romania,
Mm-hmm.
which I worked with the Pass for Polar, this thriller. And the was also shot in 16, and yeah, like it's, I mean, the same doubts we had back then I had 1 week back, like, oh,
Okay.
transportation, like, how do we know dailies are good? So all of this was on the dad sisters heads. I think
Okay.
Nat really wanted to film me too, but we were
Okay.
like, not, maybe not the full movie. Maybe we can do, I mean, we tried 35 that day. We tried
Mm-hmm.
35, 16, and Alexa. We tried the three
Mm.
cameras, and we rolled the scenes. I mean, because the ISOs of those things were not compatible. We
Mm.
shot we shot them separately. I don't think we shot them together like at the same time, but we
Okay.
certainly we certainly tried like all of them, and then we went to at that time the lab in Bombay was still working, so we
Mm.
went there, and we saw the rushes, and Nag was like, he was in love with it. Kirti Suresh on celluloid. He was like, "Oh my God, this is great, bro." And then we sat down and we're like, you know what? Like, we're gonna shoot this stuff that doesn't have Kirti Suresh. on film, and the rest on Alexa. And I'm like,
That's
because
interesting.
yeah, it was an interesting conversation because obviously the first idea that you could have is like, okay, so Savitri's life, Satyaka's life, like that's older. So let's shoot that in film and then, shoot present in Alexa. But that's not how it is. Like we're going back already to the 80s, you
Mm.
know? So actually, we decided like, okay, because because Samantha is in the present, she would actually
Cool.
be on film, right?
Okay.
She would be the
Okay.
one with celluloid because, and we actually used a lot that related to how movies were shot at that time, because
Exactly.
because how labs worked at the time,
Hmm.
how the prints actually got a little sloppy and had that dirty look. So
Exactly.
we wanted that for that. And then in a way, like everything else is Samantha's like imagination. So
Exactly.
Samantha's
Yeah.
imagination would be different, She would think about this, grand moments, and we would enhance the life as well. Like we would do a progression with that life, because I mean Savitri's life is actually the movie, The other thing is like a way to enter and to understand where you go, right? Different perspectives of her life. So we also thought about like progression in Savitri's life, and you know and that actually the costume designer, obviously she works in they work in decades, right? So
Hmm.
she's like,
Hmm.
oh, Danny, the 40s are like this, and like Danny, the 50s are like this, and I was like, oh. So we sat down for many 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 sit downs at Vayanti movies, and I didn't understand because obviously like is this scene from the 50s? No, that's the 60s. Then it's like and this is 40s. So at some point I was like, how am I doing this? Like obviously the costumes have to be like attached to some realism of the
Yes.
Uh,
time that they're in. But
uh,
what's important in the movie is how she is at the time, right? Her psyche.
okay.
And that's
Okay.
where, I sat down with Nag and I was like, how about if we, instead of going through the decades and like changing our camera for the decades, Savitri changes the camera, right? And it was like, how do you
Cool.
like? Well, for her early life, she's in a small town, so let's have a camera that moves a lot and like kind of goes like a child, and everything is kind of the colors of the earth and the woods, like nothing stands out, and we'll use very naturalistic lighting, and obviously I mean I have to say this, like I wasn't aware of how good the location scouting for this movie is, but after shooting a lot in Hyderabad, I have to say like I mean, like kudos to the whole team because we shot in beautiful locations, like that I wasn't aware
So,
of. Most of the time
uh,
because I'm a foreign person in Telangana,
Yeah.
we just
yeah,
go there
yeah.
and be like, not this good, like let's do this in the evening, blah blah blah. But like those locations were excellent, like where we shot the childhood of Mahanati. Then she goes to Chennai for the first time, and that's where we introduce some colors of flowers, like mild colors of flowers that are like
Yeah.
more like yellow, right? Or
Yeah.
green. Like, and then suddenly, like, this is subtle and probably people don't know, but I started using some diffusion filters, so
Okay.
like it becomes like a kind of like a dreamy world, in which she's in.
Exactly. Exactly.
Uh, and the moment she hits stardom, that's when we change from spherical lenses to anamorphic because
Oh, okay.
Oh.
she entered the film world, and
The
film, like right now we kind of have that. It's a contemporary notion, obviously, because
okay.
there were no anamorphics at that time. But
Yeah.
when we shoot anamorphic right now, it looks more cinematic for some reason. So that's where like it just pops in your head, right? So we use Hawk VCD V lights. Hawk is a very good anamorphic lens, and the V lights are my favorite. And still as the farther she goes, the more we diffuse, the more we diffuse, the more we diffuse, the more we diffuse, until, like suddenly, boom, like envy starts coming.
Yeah,
Right? And
exactly.
we have the perspective of Dulquer, which
Complete orange and tails come now.
exactly, who's an amazing
Yeah,
actor, like, and
yeah,
suddenly, like, we see like his mind, and suddenly, like, it's the same. It's still anamorphic and it's still diffuse, but the light is gone. He sucks the light.
exactly.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Jiminy Ganesh sucks the light of the film, and suddenly it
Okay,
becomes really dark. And that's where drinking comes, and then there's the different stages in which we go back, and we take all the diffusion out, and we go back to spherical, and then we end in spherical as well. I
cool.
think
that's
then in a
that's
movie we
just
see like an upfall, and that's when and like, because we thought about like how, and this is something that I also did in another movie, that I mean, this is how Nag actually found me. It's related to colors, and it's related to what I'm gonna tell about the ending of Mahanati.
Okay,
I shot this movie called Sampachattar, year 75, year 1975. It's
okay.
about the emergency year. It's a political thriller, and it's not out because it's banned,
Oh,
but
okay.
everyone
okay.
has seen it.
He started
But
searching for it.
everyone's seen it, which is something very surprising of India. It's like, how did, like, I really like your work. So Nag watched that movie, and
Oh,
she thought it had a very different way of portraying vintage, of portraying time period. And it was the first time that he was doing a period movie, and he wanted something different. So what we found for that movie, Navneet Behel, the director, and I, we were looking at photos of the era of 1975, and obviously, like, the first layer of film or photos, at that point, for celluloid, is blue, because blue is the color that we are least capable of catching. It's
mm.
the less sensitive
We
color
can't.
that we have. I think we only have 5% in the
Yes,
macula of our eyes for
yes.
those tones, right? So the first
Mahanati
color,
ends in blue.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So we devoided the movie of blue, and you don't notice it,
Okay.
but like, the moment blue comes in, it's like, suddenly it's the note that you were restraining from,
Okay.
it's the
Yeah.
font that you didn't use, throughout the whole piece. And suddenly blue comes in, and like, I mean, I every time I'm hitting the movie, I'm crying. Everyone gets really emotional. I remember my parents watching it, on the first day, first show at Prasad
Mm-hmm.
Labs.
Mm-hmm.
Went there with them, and they don't understand Telugu. Obviously, there were no subtitles,
Yeah.
and they just understood it through images, which was, the best compliment that I could get. So yeah.
Cool.
Well, awesome, awesome.
Nice.
Me and Sai were watching all your work, and we made a list of so many questions we wanted to touch with you. You answered everything.
Actually, yeah, that was one of the question I had, like the Samantha's thing and everything. Like, how did you guys even coordinate with that thing? And you actually answered that. Uh,
But this is excellent, Danny. I know we kind of got at least a little bit of this explanation which you were trying to tell when as a normal viewer, but I think hearing it from you, it all makes like a lot more sense. I was kind of
exactly.
visualizing all those scenes when you were
I mean,
going to
this is,
manage.
just like our, the creators' ideas. Then,
Mm,
the viewer has a different experience. But even if it's subtle, I think it works, subconsciously, and it hits you, and it's
exactly.
powerful. And like, maybe you cannot put it into words, because I think we tried to. I mean, obviously, like, the best cinematography is invisible.
Mm,
So, I mean, obviously people stayed with the big shots, right? But I mean, the best thing that you can say about the good movies that I've shot is that they work without dialogue. They work narratively with images, and they're invisible. Like, it's
mm,
nothing that you can really capture.
Very nice. Just moving a little away from Mahanati. I wanted to understand this, me and Sai, people who were like born in and around in Telangana, in India, still I don't think we understand our own culture very well. There's a lot for us to understand. Being a person from another country, how difficult was it for you to cope up and understand all those cultural contexts or uh, pop culture references, as in Hollywood, they would say about uh, Savitri's movies or like
Even the Virata Parvam, like
Virata,
even the
even in Virata Parvam, there's like a lot
you
of
have to
cultural
understand the
context. You need to
exactly.
understand the Naxalism part of it and how people in that time frame, the mindset out of it. Like, how are you able to cope up with all of this?
Well, first of all, I have to say that most cinematographers are foreign to the land that they work in, right? If you think about like the good cinematographers of Hollywood right now,
Hmm.
uh, the British, the Swedish, the Mexican, like there's I mean there's a few Americans, but like most of the time, like if you think about the ones that you really love, they're foreigners, like, and I think that it helps because when you're immersed in a culture, it's harder for you to alienate yourself to look at where you at from a distance, right? So you can capture it like with understanding it fully, or understanding
Mhm.
it from a whole perspective. Like I think when you're too immersed, there are things that are just natural and they're just normal, and when you're falling into a culture, there's things that just stand out, and I think that helps when you're in a collaborative art where probably the director is native to the tongue, the language that you speak, and is native to the culture, because then you can help him understand things that are nuanced for you. So, so that first. Then, like, I mean, in a way, like India was not such a culture shock for me because maybe because I'm Spanish, and we're a very family oriented society. So that level of in a way tenderness and closeness to the family, or way of relating to each other, or proximity, even like the Americans, like when they go to America, they don't understand like how, like, you in India, people are so close to each other in lines, in queues, right?
Mm.
Like, dude, like, because it's in their comfortable area, it's like, don't come so close. For me, like, it was like that was not the case. We have the same relationship with cousins, that you guys have here, just to mention something, like
Mm.
my cousins, I grew up with them. They were some of my best friends. We watched movies together the whole time. They're film lovers. They watch my films. And so that was not like a difficult thing. The thing that it's is more difficult is language, obviously,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
that's a construed, right? And in a way, like, you create language, like through language you can create the imaginary of a culture. But that helps when you're actually like narrating with images, because the content of the film, but you're not attached to like a particular way in which someone would say something. Like, for example, like, there's a way in which film language was at that. I mean, film language dialogue was written at that time,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And dialogue was emotive,
Mm.
and like Kirti Suresh or Dulquer, like they put a lot of hard work on that.
Mm.
And I mean, I knew, oh, that looked like classic film, right? Like, I mean, you can sense it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like sometimes we did a retake, and I was like, even I mean, I don't want to reveal anything. I cannot
Okay.
It's
about
okay.
Kaantha, but like you guys know a little bit of it. During the process, like, obviously, like, that I don't get, but I know what they're saying, what they're expressing, and I can manage with lighting, with all the resources of cinematography, I can do subtext, which is what really an actor does, right? Gives you subtext over dialogue. And dialogue, I think it was Vilmos Zsigmond who said that dialogue should be punctuation
Mm.
for images. And
That's true.
that's pretty cool.
That's true.
That's a very
That actually,
interesting
yeah,
sentence.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's actually true. Like if you just try to grasp it, yeah, that's true.
Yes. How was it working
Okay.
with Dulquer again on Kaantha? I know over years he grew to be an excellent actor, I would say.
You guys cannot imagine.
How good
He
that
is
movie is going to be.
so awesome in this movie. He's
Oh my
like
God, I'm hyped up now.
out of this world. I mean, yeah, you guys don't know. Mm.
Okay.
Waiting, waiting.
So anyway, like as you're speaking about lighting and stuff, like I just wanted to I have this like question going on whenever I watch Mahanati. I don't know how many times I watch it. It's like infinity, maybe you can just count
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, we are
So
not just saying this because you're on the call. If you see our
no,
old
no, no, yeah,
podcast,
yeah.
we spoke about
You
Mahanati
can
so many times.
exactly. You just go back to our podcast. We just keep on speaking about Mahanati. So that big fans we are. So you actually used glares in like the whole film to the whole with the whole film. Like actually, I think I don't know what Nagi explained you. What I was thinking while I was watching, like when I was keeping on watching the film, was like you actually showed like reflected Savitri Garu as son. That's what I was thinking. Like because her entry shot will be with like completely you try to hide her up with the sun, and like also there is a particular shot where in the song, like the Mahanati song, there is this guy who actually cheats her, right? In the end of the film, her assistant, he
Yeah.
actually shadows up the sun at that particular point.
Mm.
So what were you were like what did Nagi explain you at that particular time? Was my assumption true? Why was there a lot of glares in the film? Like yeah, I just wanted to know that.
Yeah, I mean, like obviously it's cosmetic, it's the fact that, she's, it's kind of her mood. But yeah, like in a way, like it's her, it's Mahanati. It's not even Savitri, it's like Mahanati, It's
Yeah.
when she's Mahanati. And like another moment that kind of correlates to it is that before Samantha goes in that night
Hmm.
to talk to her, face to face, the sun
Hmm.
is setting behind her, right? So
There is sorry.
sun is setting behind
Yeah,
Sun
yeah,
her,
is
yeah,
setting.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then it's gone. Like that's the last sun, and then she
Yeah.
dies. Mm. And,
Okay.
and at that time, like uh, we decided that when, like, I mean, this is like symbolism and whatever. Like maybe people didn't notice, but when
Metaphors.
Santa
Yeah.
goes to talk to her, she's not in film anymore. She's in the world of
Yeah.
sound, and she's
Yeah.
in. So, because Savitri overshadows her in a way, right? Like capture her in her world in a way. And we don't know if this is an imagination of Samantha, right? Or
Yeah.
not. And we wanted to leave that up to the audience. Like we don't
Hmm.
know if this is this happened for real, or if this is Samantha writing and imagining what she would say to her, right?
That's
And
yeah, yeah.
that's why we keep, the curtains are another leitmotif, of the
Okay.
story, in which the curtains kind of veil secrets and unveil them, right? Like, obviously, like it's very difficult to shoot. I mean, this is kudos to Nag for doing this. How do
Hmm.
you a biopic be realistic and still appease the people who like love her so much, the
Hmm.
family, the descendants, and also like the people who want to know more, that know like about the things that were difficult and conflictive of her life, right? and I think like he walked a very difficult like line in which he actually revealed a lot of secrets, right? Like about how
Hmm.
her family was, and still
Hmm.
kept it realistic. So I mean, the family was there and they were super happy with the movie, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean they became my friends actually. They're so nice,
Nice.
so cute. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Nice,
yeah.
Like,
nice.
yeah.
So
One of the curtain shot I loved was like when actually she gets to know that this guy, I mean, Dulquer is in another relationship. She
mm,
just lets him out, just yells at him, asks him to go, and then there is a curtain shot where you're showing only half of her face, and
mm,
her this thing, what we say, the bindi
yeah.
won't be visible.
Mm,
Like and then the frame completely turns into blue.
mm.
That's like now I understood, like when you're actually explaining about this shots, now I got to understand that. Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. One more thing, Danny. I know you worked on some other projects in LA and you did some work in Spain and some work in India. As a whole, I know as a whole, like making a movie is making a movie. There could be like so many on shoot location, on the spot ad hoc issues which you all guys like solve together. But as a whole, what is your experience like working in three different countries, three different mindsets, three different group of people,
Yeah,
similarities or differences?
it is very different, but it is the same film language, right? So
Yeah.
Mhm.
so if you can talk, I mean, with Nag, there was no problem. Like, I mean, we just clicked, the moment we met because we speak Finn language.
Mm.
He's amazing, like deciding shots. Like, I mean, he would come, like with his demeanor, he'll be like, yeah, you're like, this is Danny, no, 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 no. Like, can we go wider, wider, wider? Okay, okay, wider. No, 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 Danny. Like, okay, okay, okay. Like, Nagi, like if we want to go wider, we have to go outside of the stage. It's like, yeah, we have to go outside of the stage. That's where, that's where that Guru that movie the shot, in which we open the gates and suddenly the leak of light comes in. Started. It was just a scene. It was a long scene, and we just shot that wide, and that's Nag Ashwin for you. Like he just he knew exactly like what it needed for that moment in time. He also edits like throughout the course of the movie. That's one of the, I think, qualities of or characteristic of the movies that I've shot in Telangana so far, is that the directors have the ability to see their movie as they're shooting.
Mm.
Whereas in LA, like you don't have, I mean, you have one day off every 6 days and you just want to sleep, right? And then you wake up and go to work. So you better do like a lot of prep before you actually start shooting. Whereas I feel like you get to discover the movie that you're shooting a lot more when you're working in Telangana. Um,
Mm.
and with Bombay is different. Like it depends on the movie. Like I've shot movies in which there's just one stretch. Like Sampachatar, we shot it in 40 days in
Okay.
Lucknow, and there was no day off. It's like
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
it was crazy. Like I mean, I demanded a day off because we had like a chase sequence on cars the next day, and I was like, dude, like we need at least a day to prep. So it's not a day off. It's to prep. And but yeah, like and then other movies, shot over the course of 3 years, and like and then you see the movie, you understand the edit, and you understand what the movie is about, like what it needs, and it's a little different. But yeah, I had to like change the switch for that. Like in LA, like when you have set a visual design, then you attach to it. And in some movies that I've shot, like those things don't work on set, right? Like suddenly you thought that this was going to be one way, and then it's not working, so you have to change the visual design completely, and the how to approach it, because the story has changed. On I mean, literally, like not only like the subtext of the movie changes, but like sometimes the script changes. So this, I mean, as much as I say visual language, like it's in my contract that I get all of the changes of the scripts translated.
Okay.
because because it's difficult, like with all keeping all those changes, like suddenly like, but it's isn't is this not happening? No, 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 it's happening at a beach now. Like what? Okay, so yeah, so yeah, it's always a little surprising, but and I think Nag especially, he's a director that works with that, and the same way that he wants to surprise the audience the whole time during the course of the film. I think he says that in many interviews, no, which is like right now, like the cinema that people go to watch has to be a spectacle. So he keeps on like doing this montage of attractions, this kind of like Soviet 20s idea, like as Tarantino puts it, the crazy Russians, right? They had this idea of montage of attractions, which is basically just saying that you have to surprise the audience with different things in visual language. He does that all the time, right? He uses that to surprise the audience, but he surprises us too. And sometimes it's not nice, Nagi. Like sometimes I like it's frustrating because you're like, what? Like, but it's so yeah, like, but I mean, I think I can work in all these different spaces because I'm a flexible guy. Like, I guess, like, I mean, I come from a family that loves traveling, that loves understanding all the cultures. So when I switched from editing to cinematography, that was one of the reasons because I love traveling. So for me, like moving from a continent to another continent, it's not an issue. It's more like a thrill. So so I'm always exciting to like learn new things, right?
Very nice. I'll ask you one funny question on the same lines.
Mm.
Being a kid from Spain, LA, film school, working in India, working in LA, I know you would have picked so many personality traits from these different cultures. Uh, let's say I'll give you an example of what I mean. Being kids from India, where we grew up in India, saying no is very difficult for us. Like it's very hard for us to like say no to people. But after moving to like US or Canada for my masters and all, I think I slowly picked up the habit of saying no when I feel like I want to say no now. At least it's not like completely gone, but at least I picked up
He actually made
it to an
a series on
extent.
it. He
Now,
actually made a series on it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now I want to know if you picked up any of those personality traits working in India and also in LA. You know, there could be some subtle things which subconsciously or unknowingly you could have picked up, right?
So I mean, I was when I was doing PhD, I was working with Japanese movies,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's an Asian thing. It's not only Indian, because
Mm.
yeah, which is no in Japanese, they don't they don't say it. They say like it's more like a doubting. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's like very rude, right? So it's like, and then like, so yeah, like I used to date a Japanese editor, and yeah, like it was like some culture shocks happened the whole time, so I'm used to that. But I think the best way that you can track like my travel in my life is the way I speak in English because
Okay.
I like, yeah, when I moved to India and I came back to LA, they just laughed at me. They're like, dude, like, when did you pick up this accent? Like, where is it from? Like, so yeah, like, I mean, it's the same. Like I think I'm a little bit Zelig, like that Woody Allen movie. I'm a little bit like Zelig, where wherever I go, I tend to. I mean, it's not something. I mean, it's just not rational, but I tend to speak the same way that people
The
do.
accent.
I,
Yeah.
I end up doing the head thing and saying like, "Oh, let's go now," and like that. And like because in Spain we say that too. It's like "Vamos, no," and so for me it's like, oh yeah, that's like what would you say like wouldn't we? Shall we go? Shouldn't we? Right? Like, no, like you say no, and it's like so much shorter, so much better. And I love learning about like the different traits of English as well. Like the same way that I'm amazed when I go to Latin America and I see the different evolution of Spanish. When I move to I mean this is completely unrelated to film, by the way. But I guess this podcast is detouring somewhere else. But yeah,
Ah,
like
that's
I
fine.
love
That's
No.
fine.
understanding like the different nuances or different evolutions of English language. Because I learned British, right?
Hmm.
Then I moved to America, and they couldn't understand me. They were like, "Oh, it's your accent." And I'm like, oh, in the UK, they told me I had a great accent. Like, what happened? Like, so, and then I picked up a lot of American. And then when I meet my English friends, they're like, "Oh my God, you're so American, blah blah blah." Like, okay, great. Then I come back from India, and they're like, "Ha ha, you sound so Indian." I'm like, "Great."
This is very funny. I
So
did not.
even
I did not expect you would say that you picked up Indian English. I thought you would have told about the
Oh, for
head
sure.
thing.
The head nod, and yeah, and it's difficult for me to like not understand that they wouldn't say no. Like when I ask for something, oh, couldn't we do this? Like can we just not go to the other side of the river and like do this? And we're like, yeah,
yeah. Yeah, yeah. They won't say no, but they'll
and
say
I'm
it in
like,
a different way.
but can we really? I don't really go there, like because I don't know. I like, is this gonna be like an issue? So I'm like, is this gonna be an issue? Like, if it's an issue, I have other solutions. They're like, yeah, it's better not to because that shore is for this. And oh, okay, okay, cool, cool.
Very nice, very
Okay.
funny.
Cool, cool.
Uh, I know we are at time, but I wanted to ask you one more question. This is something which I was trying to I was kind of reading in one of your posts or somewhere on your wiki or somewhere. I kind of see that you are more interested in shooting in open locations compared to these sets. Is that true? Why?
It is true. I mean, like even in Kaantha, we decided to go for real locations, even though we had to set them up because they're period pieces, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
period piece. You have to set it up, and in a way, it's double difficulty because it's a set, but it's a real location.
Hmm.
So you have the things that are comfortable from a real location, which I think it's interesting, and you have I mean the fact that it's a set, so it looks fake. So you have to like glide it in a way that is natural, right? So it's all these things, but the limitations of a real location are, I think, they prompt you into thinking differently about like a sequence, and suddenly there's this, the limitations of freedom, of creative freedom, kind of make you want to go into different solutions for it. And they usually like, I mean, they just look more natural. Like suddenly you adapt like the idea that you had in your head of how to shoot this sequence, you have to adapt it to this shoebox, right?
Hmm.
And the shoebox is not square, but it's actually this long corridor. Like, okay, like how can we shoot this there, right? And then
Yeah.
adjusting to it. I mean, especially if you have a director that understands visual language,
Yeah.
and it's very interesting because you can speak about, okay, like how are we going to do this, like it's a like, so because you have to adapt the story too. It's not like you can, from an idea that you had in this living room, right now it's a staircase. How do you do
Mm.
that? You cannot do the same thing. You have to
Mm.
adapt, and maybe you even have to like work with dialogue. You have to work with the actions. Maybe you have to like change the course of the narrative just because of the location. And I think that's very interesting. Also because I love traveling. So
Mm.
I
I
mean,
see
this is
that.
an afterthought, but like because I love traveling, like actually like discovering new places in the world while shooting, it's really cool.
So
Very
you're
nice.
shooting Kantha completely in Kerala, right?
No, Kanta was shot in Hyderabad.
Oh,
Oh, it was shot
okay.
in Hyderabad.
You
Nice.
missed, you actually missed Kerala. Like, if you would have got opportunity to visit Kerala, just go
No,
Did
visit.
you shoot
I
anything in
shot
Kerala?
Virata Parvam in Kerala.
Ah,
Oh,
That was-
oh, like the these
waterfall
shots, like
scenes.
yeah,
waterfalls as well as the forest
exactly.
shots.
And one thing, I forgot to like going back to the question of culture shock, right?
Mm.
Um, I mean, I'm happy that I can choose the movies I want to shoot, right? Gladly.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm privileged that way. And with Mahanati, like the thing is we have Mahanatis in Spain, in cinema in Spain. I'm sure like every regional cinema has
Uh,
those, right?
yes.
Our Mahanati is Marisol. Marisol
Okay.
singer, or the actor singer from the 50s. She was a little
Okay.
girl who became like a huge, the biggest star in Spain, right?
Okay.
But I mean, she was so harassed by the media that instead of
Okay.
dying under that scope, like Marilyn or Savitri Garu, like she actually like completely like changed her name to Pepa Flores, her original name, and went away. Like they gave her an award for her life, the Goya of honor, and she didn't go to pick it up because
Oh God.
Oh,
it's completely like out of the film world. So in a way that you have your own, the same way that actors when they have to cry or when they have to put in a situation of angst, right, they go back to traumas or moments in which they relate to how these things are happening. I think with cinematographers we kind of do the same with our culture, right? And we kind of
Yeah.
correlate things. In Virata Parvam, like during the dictatorship of Spain, we had a rebel army in the hills that
Mm.
was against a regime that was dictatorial and really wanted like a democracy like we had before. So there were this dislocated army with really random like guns, and the
Mm.
only way that they could survive is a guerrilla war, right? So they were
Mm.
hiding in
Mm.
woods and going to mountains, and that's how like they kept a rebellious movement while the dictatorship of Franco, who like completely like killed so many people in Spain, happened. So when I read Virata Parvam, I'm like, oh, this is looks the same.
This actually matches it.
In a way, like it all comes from a capitalistic thought. Is that aristocracy is here in Andalusia in the south of Spain where I was born, and they own most of the land.
Okay.
So I mean, if the source of income is land and everything is owned by a few, then it has to be redistributed, right? And that's what the Naxals did.
yes.
So
Mm.
so it was the same movement, but in Spain. So when I read it, I
Okay.
was like, "Oh, this resonates very strongly with me, right?"
Very
That's true.
nice.
That's true.
Yeah. Also,
So,
we were like, okay, being people from there, we have like, I think by the time we were like in school, Naxalism was almost out. So we had like very little context about it. All that we know is from
exactly.
movies. You coming from a different land, you were like, okay, you could not have any idea about it. But
You actually related it to your country and then you actually
Exactly.
made it.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
uh,
Yeah, and coming to Virata Parvam, like there is this brilliant shot, the climax, where I actually wanted to speak about. Like, what did the director narrate you at that point of time? Because like that particular shot where Vanilla is killed by Ravanna. I mean, he shoots her, and the shot exactly comes in a way that she falls down, like she falls down as if she is coming from him, like as a part of Ravanna is going and falling in the waterfall. Like,
Mhm.
what did the director narrate you at that point of time? Like, is it the same way? Like
I'm,
the part of Ravanna is dying.
I'm so glad you picked that up, Sai, because you're picking up a lot of things that are, like that I never heard, like asked me before, and things that
Okay.
are
Oh,
real,
nice.
like for example, yeah, like the leitmotifs of the sun, like we thought about it, and the same way with, I mean, Venu is a poetic guy,
Yeah,
Venu,
yeah, yeah. I know
right?
him. Yeah, yeah.
So he's always like, no, Dani, like, um, my English is not so good. And like, of course, your English is not so good as your Telugu because you are a poet in Telugu, man. Like,
Exactly.
he had no problem in English. So we had no problem in communicating that way. And with this, he'll be like, oh, Dani, like, oh, like this scene, uh, it's very important because these emotions, and he would make me go through the whole thing, and he would trust me. Like with Venu, like the good thing is that like he made sure that I understood the emotions, and then he gave me freedom, right, to express.
Mhm.
And I mean, even though I have a few, I mean, I was a little let down by the some of the VFX in the
Okay.
in the climax. I think
Yeah,
the
yeah.
climax is some of the best things that I've ever designed, that I've ever shot, right? So, and yeah, like it's a moment in which he doesn't want to. I mean, he's so close to her. It's part of him. Like he doesn't want to shoot it. By shooting her, he's killing Ramana is killing part of who he is,
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
killing his openness. Like he's not gonna be the same. He's gonna be
Exactly.
this ruthless warrior after this. Like I mean, part of him dies with her. And she knows. I mean, Sai Pallavi is so fucking good in that. Sorry.
Oh my
It's
God, I
okay.
wasn't.
That
She
Sai
is
is like,
excellent.
oh my God. Like
I
that
don't know why people
when
don't speak about this film. This film is a masterpiece.
Yes.
Literally a masterpiece, man. Like, there is a similar film that came in Tamil,
oh
like
yeah.
Viduthalai, Viduthalai,
Oh,
Vetrimaran, Vetrimaran
oh,
sir. So
oh,
it's the kind of same idea, but
mm.
it's a big hit, man. Like there are two parts of that film, and it's a big hit. But this particular film didn't even reach a lot of people. I was still wondering why it's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
go on. You were
Go
saying
on.
something. I
Sorry.
was
Go
yeah,
on.
just tripping on
I
the
mean,
film.
I think it's a shame because it came at a time that was very difficult. After, I mean, we had to stop shooting because of COVID, and
Oh,
a lot of, I mean, I think a lot of changes happen when you have. Okay, so when you have time to do an edit and understand the film, that's great. But if you have too much, it's like Magritte said, like the moment you end a masterpiece is when you know that you fucked it up, right?
oh,
And you're painting, and then like you're like, oh, that's when I stopped, when I actually fucked it up. So I think, I mean, with Virata Parvam, like this long procedure, like actually hurt the way that that it was viewed on screens by the audience. I mean, no, by the audiences. I mean the box office, because it's a
yeah,
weird time in which no one knew how to bring people to the movies,
mm,
right? And I mean, it was not. It was. I mean, it did its money. It was not like it's not like it's not. It was not a hit, but it was not a
yeah, yeah,
blockbuster,
yeah,
Yeah.
But
yeah. It
but
has to be a
people,
blockbuster, man.
the
It's
people who
oh my God.
watched it, really loved it. So I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I'm happy with that. And the climax is, yeah, some of the best. I mean, I think it's a heightened moment. It's where both of them are the best. Rana is shouting at her, and
yeah,
just that expression of her like accepting her fate.
yeah.
Like I've never seen like a better performance than that. Like
That's true.
I
That's
don't
true. That's
understand
true.
how no one, like not more people talk about Sai Pallavi in this movie, because
Yeah,
she
yeah.
obviously, I mean, everyone, like we had such an excellent cast. Rana is amazing in it, but like
Exactly.
and I mean everyone in it, it was a I'm glad that I was working with these people because they made my life so easy. You know,
Yeah.
put her in such difficult
Right.
situations. Sai Pallavi in this one, poor girl. I mean, and gladly like Rana is big into action. So whenever we had action, he's like, Dani, where do I move? Like, where? And with Sai, it was more like, okay, like she would understand everything and then she would deliver, right? So
Yeah.
Very nice. Also,
the tricks.
good that we brought this up. And I also wanted to tell you have a very expressive face.
Yeah. Actually, we wanted to show
You
you.
are very expressive, and we wanted to show you
Oh,
this.
What? Yeah. This one, this particular shot. How did this happen?
The
We
more.
so
actually wanted to talk to you in the starting of the podcast about this particular three frames where you enter Mahanati's world and just go away. Like, what is this thing? What happened behind the screens?
no, I mean, this sequence is really funny.
Yeah.
So so yeah, like Nag is always having the surprises. Suddenly like and one day he's like, no, Danny, we have this lax shoot and like we don't have I mean, he lied probably. He's like, oh, we don't have like photographers, so we're thinking like you and you know you and Nishant, who started his film career in Mahanati. Now it's a full-grown DOP. He's amazing, Nishant Katari.
Okay.
He was
Okay.
my first assistant in Kaantha. He did like a
Okay.
terrific job also on Kalki. Um,
Oh,
Nice.
okay.
he shot. I mean, he did some second unit, and he was the gaff. It was the assist like junior gaffer, I think it's called, and he is in this one too. So
He's in this
Nagi is
frame.
actually like I think he's kind of a fortune teller sometimes. So for this one, like Indrakshi was so like happy. She's like, "Oh, Danny, I've been like keeping this in case you needed to do a cameo because most DOPs, I mean, all of the DOPs that shoot with Nagi, they actually do a cameo. Like even George did a
Yeah,
cameo.
yeah, I know. He did it. He
Uh,
did it in
so he proposed this
Kalki.
cameo. It was fun. It's like, okay, like let's grow the beard, let's do this mustache, and I'll put you like this. And I think this is that dolly track, right?
Yeah.
Um, was very difficult because obviously like I'm not operating and I'm the operator of most of my movies. If I have two cameras, then I go behind the monitor. Otherwise, I'm operating. And
Okay.
for this one, Nagi was operating the camera. So he's behind the camera. He's
Cool. That's
actually
cool.
doing the cameo. And I think
Okay.
it took 9 takes because the dolly wasn't working at the same time that I was pacing. And I had to like, I mean, it's perfectly paced. I don't know how we did it, but like, when I'm like in front of her face, I go like this and I'm like framing her, like it was
This
magic.
one.
Yeah, it
This
was
one.
magic. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Very nice.
yeah. It's
Very nice.
Easter egg, since it's Easter.
This
Easter
is
egg.
excellent. This is
Uh,
fun. Nice. I know we
Like I
will.
was,
Uh-huh. Go ahead.
sorry. The way I found you here is like I was just going through your photos. Like, who is this guy? Like I never knew your face, to be honest. So like, no one knows cinematographer's face because he's always behind the camera. So like I saw this guy somewhere. I saw this guy somewhere. Then I got it. I got the strike. Okay, he's in Mahanati. He acted there. Okay, now we have to show him like.
I
This
know.
is
Okay.
nice.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, like, it's funny because in most countries, like cinematographers are completely, I mean, we're ghost. But
Yeah,
not in Telangana. Like,
yeah.
so my parents came for the premiere of Mahanati, and we were sitting in a brewery, and suddenly like this lady comes, and she's like, "Are you Danny?"
Hmm?
And I was
Oh.
like, yes, you shot Mahanati, right? And I was like, yeah, how do you know? And he's like, well, I'm a teacher, and
Okay.
I know that your parents are teachers too.
Oh,
And
wow.
and my I went with my whole class to watch Mahanati, and
Okay.
because they wanted to value like your participation in this movie being a foreigner, they wrote you this letter.
Oh my
Wow.
And
God.
I'm like, what the like how like is this like hidden
Re-
like what? I mean, it was such an emotional moment. I'm like, wow, like this is crazy. So all these 8-year-olds have written to me and like praising the work that I did in Mahanati. I mean, they loved the movie, and I mean, that's just, I mean, I don't know. It was one of the most touching moments that I've ever lived. So yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, kudos to. I
so,
mean, and it's funny because nowhere else in the world people stop me in the street to ask me
Mm.
what film.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't. I mean, sometimes they want to do a selfie, but most of the times they go and they're like, "So Dani, this shot, how did you make it?" And like, it's really, I mean, it only happens to me in Telangana, frankly. Like nowhere else in the world, people I think are so knowledgeable of the visual language. Like most
Yeah, yeah.
people in the world, they love actors obviously because they're the face of film. They love dialogue because it's funny, and the delivery is kind of emotional. But nowhere else in the world I've encountered such love for cinema, like
Yeah,
fully,
yeah.
as I've done in,
That's
in South India, you know?
that's
People
true.
just love movies. They're just like obsessed and they learn so much, like people are knowledgeable. So there is, I mean, the viewer is privileged because he's expert, like so when they watch, gladly like I could work with directors that know film language very well, like Nagi or
Mm.
Venu, and when we give them something, we don't know if they're gonna understand it. I've encountered the opposite. They read farther than you've done, no? So yeah, that's another difference.
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
Some other
we're
possible.
glad you
We
said this.
like, yeah, yeah. Actually, that's true. We love cinema like we love our parents.
Well, I gave my life for movies, so I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
relate.
Yeah, even you do the same thing, right? Yeah.
Very
Okay.
nice.
Yeah, okay.
Again, I know we're a little over time, but we're very
So
happy
sorry
that
for
we
that.
got to connect with you. You have absolutely no idea. Most of our podcasts are in Telugu, but you have no idea how many times me and Sai spoke about Mahanati. There were
Thank
there
you.
were few
I,
people who were commenting us saying that why do you guys always speak about Mahanati? Change the topic.
Yeah,
yeah, I know. I
exactly.
think I think most of the podcasts have been about Mahanati actually.
Yeah,
We talk about other
that
films,
was
but
our
like
point.
it's been like a big part of the podcast. Well, it's a very good
Yeah.
That's
movie.
fine. That's fine.
So,
This is like our uh, appreciation which we wanted to do from a very long time, and we got to learn a lot too about Mahanati. Like we
Actually,
there
yeah.
was a lot. There's a lot which we had like in the subtext in the back. Okay, they might have thought this, they might have thought that. I think most of it makes a lot more clearer when we hear it from you. We understand the visual
Exactly.
language better. Now, when we make a movie or when we write our movies, I think all of this is going to come back.
yeah, I mean it's interesting, no? Like some movies are very simple, and their visual design is very simple, but Mahanati was certainly not.
No,
With
no, it's
Parvam
not.
on the other side, like it's more. I mean, even though it's an action movie, like it's simpler. Like, and a lot of the things are more direct. But yeah, like in this one, like it was such a complex film that we needed something very complex. So yeah, of course, it gives a lot to talk about as well.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. We'll wind up the episode for now, and hopefully, we'll connect again back soon, maybe on a movie set list. if
Yeah,
it
Exactly.
turns out, if it
That's what
turns
I
out
was
that,
almost about to say.
yeah, if it
maybe
turns
when
that way,
when
we'll
Kanta comes out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes, maybe
Sure,
when Kaantha
sure.
comes out, waiting to see that movie. I love Dulquer,
Yeah,
so
Dulquer
I
Salmaan.
love Dulquer, man. He's
yeah, he's
marvelous.
amazing.
I
So.
love his dad too.
Yeah, and guys, like again,
Mammootty
like
sir.
it's such an honor to work with such actors. Like Rana again, Dulquer again, and like Bhagyashree is so good in
Oh,
Kaantha.
okay, okay. She is in Kantha?
She's kind of new. I mean, She's gonna like flip you guys. And then
Oh.
Okay.
Kani is such an amazing actor. You know,
Okay.
say more, but yeah,
Yeah.
It's okay. We can discuss off
yeah,
recording.
yeah.
Um,
Okay, cool. Thank you all for watching this episode, and we're definitely going to
Everyone,
have so many masterpieces coming from Dani. And for now, signing off. Bye bye. Stay tuned. Thank you
thank you
all.
guys.